Hello and welcome back to a further tour of my collection. This time it's a little bit of a smaller one. We're moving on with the Second Sight films. Second Sight are a label that I've known a lot about. Very recently, within the past 2 years, they've been releasing these amazing limited editions. I wish I could buy all of them. There's a couple that have slipped through my fingers. There's a couple I need to pick up. I've got a few of theirs upcoming that I've really just jumped on the bandwagon with. We're going to go through these films, and there only is 16 in this little collection, but as they sometimes say, it's all about quality, and I feel like every one of these movies here, especially one that's going to, maybe two that will get eyes rolling, I really enjoy. It's probably the most condensed, solid sort of set of a series I have. So I've got the collection of Blu-rays here. I have my essential cup of coffee. Oh, god damn. Right, and we're just going to dive straight in here. So we're starting strong. We're moving in with a biggie here. This was way before they really get into the limited edition game, and they released John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. Amazing movie. I love it. I first discovered this one way back in the 90s, and I discovered it because I used to subscribe to a film magazine. Every now and then they would give you a VHS with it, and Assault on Precinct 13 was one of those VHSs, but there was like a manufacturing fault. So the movie started midway through, and then midway through the tape you got the credits in the start of the movie, so you had to work to really enjoy it. This was an amazing set. It comes with 5 art cards, comes with the CD soundtrack, which Carpenter's music is amazing. This western fueled modern nightmare revolves around a group of a gang who are attacking a police station that is closing down for the night. They have no weapons, they have no contact, they cut the power, it's in the middle of nowhere, and they just lay onslaught to this building, shooting it down with silencer, automatic weapons and that, and it's very smart in the way it kind of blocks everything else out in the world and just keeps us contained to this small building and this group of people who are extremely charismatic, extremely fun, and you can see the western influences within it. If this was a jail with an onslaught of an outlaw gang trying to get their leader back or that, there's different machinations throughout it. What I really like about it is the fact that you never really see any of the gang people. You don't really hear the dialogue. They're just kind of like faceless enemies. And their intelligence in the way they go about what they're doing. This was a 4K scan, I'm sure, and it's got like all kinds of extras on it, and it was one that sold out incredibly fast. It's John Carpenter, who's always going to, and I think it was my first Second Sight purchase. Maybe we'll get to another one which I haven't watched, which may have been joint with the first. Next up, we've got the awesome Basket Case trilogy, and I'm really happy about this one because it comes in 3 discs. Quite often with these sets, they'll put out, or companies will put out like the first one on a disc and then the other 2 movies crammed on another disc. This is 3 individual titles, and if you haven't seen Basket Case, you're really missing out. It's a story of a young man, Dwayne, who has this baby cart with them, and inside the baby cart is Belial, his Siamese twin that was left for dead when they were born, and this pairing go looking for revenge on the doctors that left Belial in the way he was. There's a little fun image there of him. This is one of those really fun horror movies of the 80s. Frank Hettenlotter, who did Frankenhooker and a bunch of other amazing stuff, did this one. And if you haven't seen this and you're a horror fan, this has got quite a lot of good stuff in it. Next up, we have A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. a second sight release, one that it doesn't actually have their black cover, it's a clear case with it. And I got this one primarily because of Richard Lester. I do like the Beatles music, I think most people do. And I was really curious about this film, and it's so full of energy and charisma, and I think the guys do great work. The four protagonists, the Beatles, in this kind of caricatured story of their rise to fame. But like I said, it's so charismatic, it's so fun. You get Steptoe, I can't remember the actor's name, who plays their uncle or grandfather, one of their grandfathers and that, and he's just like belligerent old troublemaker. There's lots of wonderful scenes in this of them coming up with songs and just being themselves and being kind of funny, and you get an idea of certain personalities as well. And even if you're not into the Beatles, it's a cultural movie that has a lot to say about the time, the place, the phenomenon of the Beatles, and it's just incredibly fun as well. Next up we have Stuart Gordon's Space Truckers. You know, Stephen Dorff, Dennis Hopper, Charles Dance. Utterly bonkers movie that has a little bit more gumption and fun than it possibly should have. It sounds like one of those kind of throwaway pitch meetings, you know, where you're one last stab, you throw out space. Truckers? I'll take it. It's bonkers, it's fun, it's got some great special effects, it's kind of ludicrous the way it goes about it. Dennis Hopper, it's just wonderful in the movie, in this really kind of almost grimy but super bright fluorescent coloured nightmare feel of a movie. Again, Stuart Gordon, mid-90s, terrific film. Now the rest of these are all limited edition sets, and I'm quite lucky, as in Second Sight send me a lot of screeners about their movies, and I think that even the screeners are so good that I go and buy a physical copy, because you get all the extras and that with it as well, because they're movies that I want in my collection. So there'll be a lot of these that aren't really opened as yet, but I've seen them, I went through the content, and there's probably reviews on the channel somewhere, with the exception of this one, which is one I bought a long while ago, and I'm glad I jumped on it because it went out of print really quickly, and I still haven't got round to it. You'll see this through all these videos, like movies that I just haven't watched yet, and this is the double pack of Willard and Ben. Ben, I know from the Michael Jackson song. Willard, I seen the remake, which was alright, and this is all about rats. I think Willard's a put upon character who has a connection with rats and can train them to do things and attack people and get revenge, if I believe so. Ben is about the main rat from Willard, who makes a friend in a little boy, which just sounds utterly bonkers. Now I could be wrong with that, because that's just what I've picked up throughout the years, like hearing about these movies. I've not watched them as yet. I really should. I bet they're not even like long run times on these things. Does it say on the back? Not particularly, but I bet they're just like, oh yeah, 94 minutes on one, 95 minutes on another. There's no reason why I can't just sit down and do the two of these in one evening. There's no excuse. Next up, one of my favourite releases from last year, and it was In Bruges. Now, Martin McDonagh directs this one, and this is a wicked black sense of humour. Brendan Gleeson, Colin Farrell are utterly delightful as this partnership. It has rich thematics, and it has belly laughs by the bucket load. And if that's not enough, you get Ralph Fiennes, who turns up in a full-mouthed triate of a character who just had me in stitches as well. It's so funny, and it's so endearing, and it has something to say. And this is one of those special sets that they did that was wonderful. I'll take out the box a little bit. You know, you got the movie, which it's great. That's what you want. You get a lovely booklet in this one. It's really, the booklets are really well put together. Lots of glossy pictures. They feel quality in the material, and the essays and things that they have inside them are really great. And what I loved about this set, it has a screenplay as well, and the screenplay is one of these ones it's mainly all dialogue, very little set direction or talking about the blocking or anything like that. It's just all through dialogue, and it's a wonderful script to read. And if you're like interested in scripts or writing them, that I think from a dialogue perspective, I think it's just utterly fantastic. And it's one of those extras that made this for me an essential pickup. Next up, one of my 80s favourites movies, Flight of the Navigator, and it still holds up for me today. There's certain parts that get a little bit like Pee Wee Herman's voice for one. Some of the special effects are a little bit, but that just adds to the nostalgia that I have for this movie. Just it's so rare to find a movie that you loved as a kid that still holds that magic and nostalgic feeling and makes you appreciate it again. And this one does it. It has like a poster with this one, so we get the movie in the typical black case, which I do kind of like with these. You get the fold out poster with a couple of artworks, and you get a 100-page booklet yet again with these just various posters, images. There's the cast and crew with the ship, which is just kind of fun. Some storyboards and things. It's, for me, it's what makes Second Sight one of the most interesting companies at the moment. That this effort that they're putting in with their limited editions, and they're all kind of different. There's not like a staple plan of how they want to do it. It's different depending on each movie and what they can get for it. Now, this I wanted in my collection basically because the movie is outstanding and deeply, deeply effective. This is Take Shelter, a Jeff Nichols movie, Jessica Chastain, Michael Shannon, and it's all about a man filled with deep-seated anxiety who feels that the world is coming to an end. This is one of those movies that while I was watching it, I wanted it to be over. I wanted it to end. I wanted to get to the end of the movie and be done with this thing. They had this creeping dread climbing up my spine as I watched this, and I suddenly realised that I was within the mindset of the main character. I was feeling the anxiety and the dread and the worry that he was feeling, and the movie had let me into that, and it was such a horribly disturbing feeling that I had that really made me aware of how people with anxiety and things like that really do kind of feel. It gives you a window into that horrible, icky feeling that they have. But it's a story with amazing performances. There's a scene where Chastain and Shannon, who are husband and wife, are having a talk after an incident, and it could easily be a shouting match, you know, across a room, throwing things really actor-centric as they really go for the Oscar gold. But it's so subdued and it's so natural the way that they have this conversation, and it feels like a marriage. It feels like a partnership between those two people who know how to communicate and know how to talk to each other and know somewhat of what they're going through and how to articulate it. And it's just a wonderfully basic scene, and that encapsulates this movie. Just, if you haven't seen Take Shelter, please search it out. It is wonderful. Next up, we have the Changeling, which is one of the best kind of ghost stories I think I've ever seen. So this one's all about a man who sees his wife and child murdered at the side of the road. A driver runs over them, and he is a musician writing music, and he goes to this sort of house where he's allowed to stay. Nobody's really stayed in it for a while. It's kind of under the purview of the county, and he's allowed to stay there, and he's kind of dealing with grief, he's dealing with loneliness, he's dealing with how the later years of his life is going to go now that he's lost his family. And there seems to be a haunted spirit within this building. And it doesn't go the usual typical routes that you expect. You feel as if this spirit, who does things that make the hairs in the back of your neck just stand up, is trying to communicate with this character. And this character isn't terrified. He isn't horrified or shocked or scared. He tries to communicate back. He gets frustrated because it's not a fluent conversation that he would like, but he is almost kind of hoping that it's his wife or his kid that's trying to get in contact. But it leads to a whole kind of mysterious story, which I won't spoil for you. But George C. Scott is wonderful in this movie. There's bouncing ball scenes that's been troped to hell in other horror movies, and it's just really creepy and really effective. And there's some wonderful extras on this disc as well. This one also comes with the soundtrack and a 40-page booklet, essay by Kevin Lyons, production notes, and poster as well. It's another rammed set. Next up, one of my kind of favourite discoveries, thanks to Second Sight, is When a Stranger Calls. And I love this one because for no reason, it's not even advertised on here, it just says When a Stranger Calls. It's got the direct-to-video sequel, When a Stranger Calls Back, on here, and an HD presentation as well. And I just love that they've thrown that in here. Now, I loved When a Stranger Calls. You've seen the kind of trope: a babysitter is looking after kids, there is menacing phone calls coming from somewhere, and she's been terrorised and trying to contact the police and find out who it was, and it's kind of atmospheric and fun. And you get like a conclusion on this, and then you take up like 10-15 years later with that same character, and the whole thing kind of, it doesn't come about again, but it takes on a really interesting idea, and it doesn't feel like a direct-to-video movie. I really did like the second one, and there is a wonderful scene in a loft at the end of this one, the climax, that had me kind of shocked with what was going on, but just kind of like, wow, how effortlessly fun and great this was. I think Carol Kane is amazing in both the movies, and this has got like a CD as well, and it's got a 40-page booklet. When a Stranger Calls, if you're into your horror, thrillers, those kind of things, I think this is an essential pick-up. It's been done to hell a little bit, the tropes, but the magic's still there. It's also got a kind of short movie that was the inspiration for building it into a feature film that the director made, and it's about 20 minutes, and it kind of touches on a lot of the key points, but you can see how he's twisted little things, changed little things, and built it into a sort of bigger production than it was. Now, I think there's so many great movies in this, but this is one that I have championed, and I will continue to champion and force people to watch, because I think this is absolutely marvellous. Now, this was a TV production for Germany. It is Rainier Winner Fassbinder's World on a Wire, and this was a 2-part series. Both parts about an hour and a half each, or was it 2 hours? Just about an hour and 40 minutes each part. And it's wonderful, and it's had influences on films throughout history, like The Matrix or other kind of movies that you'll spot throughout it, but it's had clear effects on that. And it's all about a world where they've created a computer program where they've created a world, and the programmers can go into it and experience it almost like virtual reality, talk to the people who are all AIs and believe they're living their lives, experience things without any ramifications, but things start to feel off. The creator's been murdered. He's left something within this world that's bred crumbs leading to who possibly killed him. And it's a really nice thriller, and it has some good elements, but it's the filmmaking here. It's the filmmaking that really elevates this one above anything. The way that Fassbinder tackles shots, shows things. There's a clear method of thought that's went into this one, and you can see it. There's lots of scenes with glass and mirrors where reflections are distorted and people are misshapen because of it, and it's all leading to the overacting theme of the movie. And I do call it a movie because it feels like that kind of that thing, even though it was made for TV. It is. It's presented here as if it's a film presentation. Utterly wonderful, utterly fantastic, captivating, mind-bending, twisting, with clear influences on cinema from that point onwards. World on a Wire is essential viewing. Next up, we have The Amazing Mr Blunden. Now, I had never heard of this one before. People who had seen it seemed to love the hell out of it, and it's a kind of, I say Christmas movie. It's not really set about Christmas time, but it feels like the kind of movie that you watch at Christmas. And it's all about, it's Victorian England, and this Mr Blunden comes to a house and offers this woman the stewardship of this property. It's dilapidated, but just to kind of keep on the land and keep things ticking over with her 2 kids. And they go there and they start to hear stories of ghosts, and it becomes a time travelling ghost adventure back to when Mr Blunden was alive, because it seems to be that this character had died many years earlier, and it feels almost pantomime in the way that the villains are portrayed. It feels a little bit saccharine in the way the characters and how their stories wrapped up, but it's all incredibly fun. It doesn't feel overly tripe because it has these pantomime villains, because it has the saccharine moments. It doesn't overpower the movie. It actually adds to it and creates a film that, even when I was watching it with my youngster, she was hooked, I was hooked. We had no idea where it was going to go, and we just had to pick it up. Now, they picked it up for me on Father's Day because I loved the movie so much, and this one comes with The Ghosts, which is the original out-of-print source novel, and the softcover book with essays by Kevin Lyons and Kim Newman, and a poster as well. And I really want to read the story at some point because I think that'll be quite interesting. If you love movies, if you're looking for something to watch with the kids, if you're looking for a new Christmas rotation movie, The Amazing Mr Blunden, I cannot sing its praises highly enough. Now we're going to move on to something that's completely my kind of thing, and it is a couple of Amicus anthology movies. We've got The House That Dripped Blood, which is really fun. It's kind of loosely put together anthology. It's got some good audio commentaries on this one. It's got posters. It's got the booklet. As it is standard with these things now, it seems to be. It's just incredibly fun. It's got, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. It's got vampires. It's got Wurgulax. It's got all kinds of crazy stuff. And if you like anthology movies, Amicus in the early 70s were creating some wonderful stuff. But by far, my favourite horror anthology movie, I think, of all time, possibly, it's a toss-up between this and Creepshow, is Asylum. And what I love about this one is it has one of the best wraparound stories. The connective tissue between all these short horror tales. And it's all about a doctor who goes to an asylum to interview for a job. And the head psychiatrist offers him a challenge. Speak to several people and discover which one used to be a doctor in the place and is maybe making it all up. And he has to talk to all these crazy people who tell their tales of how they ended up in there. And it's wonderfully constructed. The tales are varied and fun, and it's just effortlessly awesome. I cannot recommend this one highly enough again. Next up we have Xro, which was one of their kind of first forays into the limited edition set. This was one of those movies I'd never heard of, and I will never ever forget. Henry Davenport's bonkers movie has 4 cuts of the movie on this. It's got the soundtrack, it's got a soft cover book, and it has some unforgettable scenes. It's all about a man who's abducted, whose wife thinks he's just left. She started a new life. Several years later, he comes back, but he's different. He's changed. Something's not quite the same. And this has one of the most jaw-dropping special effects sequences that I cannot believe was actually filmed, where he is kind of almost rebirthed into the world. And I don't really want to say any more than that. It's incredibly fun, pulpy, strange, extremely weird, product of its time, but if you're into this kind of thing, you'll probably really like Xro. And last up in this video, another amazing set. This is a more recent movie and one that I was given at Christmas time as a present, and that is Upgrade. And I utterly love Upgrade. I think it's such a genre specific, pulpy science fiction action movie, very similar to Venom, but way better, where this man is injured in a car crash. He loses his ability to use his arms and legs. He's offered this chip by this mysterious company, which STEM, which allows him to use his body again with the aid of this thing. And he uses his newfound skills because it now allows him to download information on how to do things like fight, and he uses it to try and figure out what happened to his car crash. Was it deliberate? Was somebody setting him up? And how can he get revenge for it? Now, this one again's got another booklet with it. It's got a poster, as most of these things do, and this one has, like, it's a little bit thinner than some of the other ones, but the information is crammed into this, and it's got like budget Tom Hardy there, who I really kind of like, Logan Marshall Green. It's not fair to call him that, but that's what everybody recognises him as. And Upgrade is an amazing movie. If you haven't seen Upgrade, it's just been uploaded onto Netflix, and I highly suggest checking it out. If you can get your hands on the special edition, by all means get it, because it's just wonderful. It's got audio commentary by Lee Winnell, a whole bunch of new special features as well, and an interview with the fight choreographer, because the fight scenes are just tremendous. Ooh. So there we go. My second set collection, which I'm quite happy with because I've seen the majority of them. It's not as bad as the Criterion one, where I hadn't seen most of them. So that's what I've got for this week. Next week I'll probably be back with another boutique label rundown of my collection. I hope you're enjoying these videos. I'd love to know if you've got any second sight movies, if there's any you're going to pick up. I've got the next 3 ordered already, because we're going to get Walkabout, which is Nicholas Roeg movie. We're going to get The Strangers, which is a terrific horror movie, and we are going to get the daddy of them all, Dawn of the Dead, 4K UHD mega box set that I literally cannot wait to get my hands on. I'd love to know your thoughts on Second Sight, what you think of the company. Let me know in the comment box below, and I will see you next time on Man v Film.